Triads are essential building blocks in the strongest solos and melodies, and you want to make sure not to miss some of the great ways that they can be put to use. You already know that even though jazz is mostly using chords with a lot of extensions, then triad melodies are still incredibly strong and something that you should have as a core part of your playing. It doesn't matter if you look at a Parker lick or classical music like Beethoven. The triads are always in there and you need them in your playing as well. There are two ways that you want to be practicing triads. In positions, playing the triad in one area of the neck, hopefully visualizing or at least keeping in mind what scale it's found in. The other way that you should be practicing triads is by playing diatonic triads in the scales that you use when you're soloing. Working on this exercise will help you find all triads in the scale and give you a solid overview of the harmony that's available. Both of these are great ways to work on the material, but not directly helping you use them in solos. And what's more important, a lot of very useful triad melodies are also left out. So let's just first fix that. One of the most common triad melodies, both in bebop themes and solos, is the second inversion triad. You can hear clear examples of this in Anthropology, or Bluebird. And the first inversion major triad is also great for solos. For example, a line like this. So if you're not practicing those, then you're leaving a lot of great melodies out of your vocabulary. Practicing inversions in a triad position would mean playing it like this. But working through the triad inversions in a scale position is a great exercise for quite a few things. So of course, just playing these are already helping you be more flexible with what you can play in the scale, and it's also introducing some string skipping that's really good for your right hand technique. But maybe the most useful part of this is that you take a predictable 3-note melody and then try to play that through the scale. Trying to hear it and just play it, not thinking in notes or chord names. When I start working on this, then I'm really not thinking about which notes or which triad I'm playing, as much as I'm hearing a melody and then hearing it move up through the scale. This may sound a little bit vague, but it's actually a great exercise that will help you become better at playing melodies by ear. If you've never tried this before, then just start with playing diatonic thirds through the scale and notice how your ear will tell you if you're playing the right notes or not. Now that you know the triad and the inversions, then you want to start getting this into your playing. And you also don't want to get caught up in a much too common jazz misconception. My musical identity really starts on the sharp 11. The melodies just all live in the upper structures. An important part of how we use triads in jazz is as upper structures, mainly because it ties together extensions in a strong sound and make the chord or the melody that you're playing make a lot more sense, similar to this line. And I will talk about how you can use triads like this later in the video, but this is not the strongest melodic tool when it comes to triads, even if you can think in upper structures and play something like this. The first thing you want to do is to become better at making lines based on the basic triads and then really get good at using those in a creative way so that your skills are already in place when you move up into thin air and more tricky extensions. If you think about the Charlie Parker lick from the Billy's Bounce solo that I used in the beginning of this video, then that is using an F major triad over an F7 chord. Another way that Parker uses the F major triad is in the opening of that solo. So as you can see, it really pays off to start making lines that are using the basic root triad and also do more than just play it up and down. Instead, you want to use it as a skeleton for the melody that you want to play and then add things to it. For example, you can use scale notes as passing notes, as I'm doing on the D minor 7 and the C major 7 in this line. And because the triad is such a strong melody, then you can also change the order of the notes and skip around a little bit more on the D minor 7. So if you find something that works, like this second inversion D minor triad melody, then try to explore using it in different ways. Play it backwards. Or explore how changing the order of the notes sound. there are some great melodies in there for you to discover. The easiest way to start doing this is to play the triad and then just add a single scale note between the notes in that inversion. For the root position C major triad, you can add either a D and an F between the triad notes. For the first inversion, then you can add the F between the E and the G. And for the second inversion, you would add the D between the C and the E. This is just how you start, and in the end you can of course do a lot more. The reason for starting here is just that it makes it easier to keep the sound of the triad in there. But triads are also great for adding extensions and colors to what you're playing. There are two levels to using upper structures. First, let's look at how you can use a system to create shifting lines that really make sense in that way, and then later how to create a flow of different colors on top of a single chord. The best way to understand this is to look at the available triads over D minor 7. That is easy if you write out the scale in thirds from D. Now here you can see that we have D minor, F major, A minor and C major triads, and the rest are not directly useful for the sound of the chord in this context. You can build the same thing for G7 altered. For voice leading purposes, then I'm starting on D flat, but the result is, as you will see, the same. This will give you D flat, F diminished, A flat minor, B augmented, E flat major, G diminished and B flat minor. So for the G altered, then pretty much everything will work, and we have a lot more options. In the line you can see that I'm using an A minor triad over D minor 7 and then moving that to A flat minor over the G7 altered chord. So I'm really just voice leading or shifting that upper structure triad to create the lick, and in that way get it to make sense. You can do this even more by moving up from A minor instead of moving down, and that way you go to B flat minor. As you may have noticed in the previous example, I was using two triads on the G7 altered, B flat minor and B augmented, and constructing melodies like this is a great way to create some interesting lines, and also a shortcut to create some lines which have a larger range than what you normally find with bebop material. For the G7 altered, this is equal to the sound you get if you change several notes in the chord. This technique for creating lines is called triad pairs, and the easiest way to get a triad pair is to just take two triads that are next to each other, because this works better if there are no common notes between the two triads, especially for the next approach to creating melodies. A basic version of this type of lick using A flat minor and B flat minor triads over the G7 altered could be something like this. You can see how the D minor 7 lick is also using an A minor triad, and that helps make that transition even stronger. Another way to make more adventurous lines is to work with melodies that connect inversions of the triads. If you take B augmented and D flat major over the G7 altered, that could give you something like this. An incredibly useful tool that, like triads, can really add something to your soloing is using pentatonics in your jazz lines. In this video you can see how pentatonic scales can create completely different sounding melodies and how to put them to use on pretty much any type of chord. This approach is a great shortcut to a more modern sound in your playing.